master and an MIS person by PhD. So I come from different disciplines. And this might add to the value and spread and scope of what I'm going to be sharing with you in my talk. And when I look at my journey with educational technologies, and actually I established several graduate programs. One of them is about management of technology and innovation, jointly between the College of Engineering and the College of Business. So I have been into management of innovation and technology for decades. And now we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about how disruptive that is, and I heard that expression several times today. So I'm going to introduce you to my term when I talk about disruption. So what I'll be talking to you about is what am I doing in the University of Calgary after all those years in the United Arab Emirates University. And I'll be talking about are we going to be Kodak? You know what happened to Kodak? It's almost similar to what happened to the mechanical typewriters. Where are they today? So that is what we should be calling disruption. But what's happening in higher education is not really disruption. It's something different that I will conclude with at the end. And how do we future-proof ourselves as academics teaching in higher education? What should we do? And here, I'm not going to be presenting research in progress. I'm going to be presenting practices that are based on research. And those practices are very well supported by literature, but they are practices. They are what I have done in the last few decades in higher education. I'm going to introduce you to a tiny bits called Effective Teaching Ecosystem. And actually, I encourage you to download that book and read it. It made a big difference to me, and I know tiny bits. And then I'm going to talk about an approach that I tried when I established a Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning. That was in 2014. I call it the augmented TPAC. I'm going to explain that. And then I'm going to share with you a framework that is being piloted as we speak, which is a mix between two frameworks implemented in two different universities in North America. University of Calgary. Exactly a year ago, His Highness, the ruler of Emirate of Sharjah in UAE, decided to create a university with a special niche in the market. And here we go with University of Calgary, which is a very nice city to retire. It's at the cost of Gulf of Oman, a slice city it's a beach. The university campus, as you can see, is very beautiful, in front of a lake. So you enjoy the nature, and at the same time, you enjoy establishing it. And I looked at it as a golden opportunity to participate at the end of my career as establishing a university from scratch, a new business model, a new value proposition, unique in whatever it introduces, and that's what we're working on. And currently, we have about 885 undergraduates, 55 faculty members. All of them are actually headhunted in order to be the first pioneers to come up with things that are unmatched in the market, and we have 4 colleges so far. Okay, are we going to be Kodak? Are we going to be disrupted? And my answer is impossible. Right, so if we are going to be talking about higher education model is going to be disrupted. Higher education model has been there for hundreds of years. and actually survive breakthroughs in educational technologies. And all what we've done so far, adapting. We've been adapting into whatever educational technologies and different teaching pedagogies appear. But the threat comes mostly from within. And that's based on what I've been dealing with in the last few years. So the pace with which educational technologies change is very fast. And we couldn't match with the skills. We're busy doing research, and we always look at research as competing with teaching, which is not the case. And at the same time, we look at, well, we're not going to be promoted if I'm going to be an excellent teacher. I'm going to be promoted if I become a competitive researcher. And that's a misconception that I'm going to share with you how we counter that in our journey. Most of us, some of us, when we start talking in the class, we keep talking. And I call that teaching like preaching, or sage on the stage. And we shouldn't do that. If we lecture more than 10 minutes, then there's something wrong happening, because we're going to be losing different generations that we're dealing with. Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they have their own approach of being educated. When it comes to how fast we adapt to online platforms. If we look at the learning management systems that are in use today, Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle, whatever, ask yourself, what is the percentage of features that you mastered? Every single feature is something very critical to helping teaching better. Virtual classrooms, I think the pandemic, if there's something good out of it, it's what happened in education after the pandemic. We started to pay attention to things that were not there before them. One of them is virtual classrooms, and I think today I can do in a virtual classroom what is impossible to be done in a face-to-face class. If you really know how to use. If you're familiar with Class on Zoom that is available today, it can completely manage a high-flex setup with remote students attending the class without losing a single second of being engaged with the face-to-face audience in front of us. And again, I'm going to go back to me, who actually used the white chalks in teaching, and the color chalk was a breakthrough to me. Teaching engineering, imagine just white color in front of the students, and now it's color. And the resistance we faced introducing the transparency projectors that was there. So, and now, actually, I'm teaching in a classroom with a dual BenQ smart boards, and I can actually capture up to 8 screens of the screens used by my students, and I can actually use that without losing the multi-touch capability of the screen, recording everything. And it's one person witnessing all that process throughout the years. Of course, the student needs are really different, and the student-centered approach is really required. And now we are talking about artificial intelligence and teaching and learning, metaverse, virtual reality, augmented reality, extended reality, immersive learning. And I partnered with INSEAD, which has a big library of virtual reality cases that are very immersive in business, and we started teaching using that. Students are thrilled to be immersed into business dilemmas and business cases as well. Now, when I said it's actually maybe the threat is coming from within, I'm talking about faculty professional development. How deep are we into that? Are we really into structured faculty professional development these days, and the trade-off between teaching and being dedicated to them? And resistance to change. You know, many colleagues, they kept telling me, Hassan, if I go away from the board, I lose control. So writing on the board is something that I like. But when we showed by example, their mindset actually changed. Now, future proofing is simply 5 traits that we should choose from. Being agile, adapting to what changes around us, and being flexible to change, open to change. And at the same time, it's the adaptation. We adapt with whatever changes happen. Since 2022, I started using Gen AI technologies in my classes. Okay. Most of the mindsets around me was just trying to say, well, that is cheap. Students are using it to answer questions. Well, let it be, right? But we have to change the way we assess our students. So nowadays, I don't actually hold some of the assessments anymore. The final exam, in my case, is I try to look that way, not this way. So when I started doing that, the assessment was different. So students go ahead, use ChatGPT, get the perfect case analysis. But when it comes to the class, we are going to discuss them, okay? And the grade is going to be based on discussion, not based on the classical report writing and other. So because of time, the future proofing now is opposite to the threat. But I would like to bring your attention to 2 approaches that were very successful. Whenever someone says, well, it's research versus teaching, I said, no, actually research on teaching can really be part of our research portfolio. And if I ask myself, I have been teaching MIS for years, but how many articles did I publish about how to teach MIS? What are the better teaching pedagogies implemented in MIS teaching? None. But 10 years ago, I started switching that. And that is the scholarship of teaching and learning. There is no single college of education today graduating people who are teaching engineering design or teaching computer programming or whatever. So we better do that by ourselves. And even the scholarship of educational leadership. So, well, how many provosts and deans started to publish articles about how to be a successful dean based on their experiences, or how to be a successful chancellor based on their experiences? Very few, as far as I know. These are 2 books. You know Clayton Christensen? Actually, the developer of the theory of disruptive innovation. And he actually authored these 2 books, Disrupting Class and Innovative University. These are 2 books. If you read them, I think you're going to start looking at the business model provided by universities in a different way. Now, very fast, I'm going to go through what Tony Bates did. That's an open source book, by the way. You can Google it, you can download it in different format in a few seconds. And I hope you enjoy reading it. He looked at the teaching ecosystem from the perception of an instructor. And he looked at 7 components. He said, in order to be effective higher education teacher, you have to work on your content, the skill set you need and your students need, the learner support provided by the institution, the resources provided to you, the assessment methods, the learner characteristics in preparation to student-centered approach, and the culture in which you function. I took that ecosystem and I said, I'm not going to actually deal with it from the perception of an instructor. So I added to it, and it changed the way it looks, and I added to it 3 components. The first is the instructor characteristics, which I built the Center for Teaching Excellence on it, quality standards, which are extremely important today to accreditation bodies and the higher education institution itself. And based on that, what I came up with is simply two approaches. The augmented TPAC, if you're not familiar with the TPAC simply looks at the different categories of knowledge that we should master as higher education instructors into three types of knowledge: technology knowledge, pedagogy knowledge, and content knowledge. So I assume that we are subject matter experts when it comes to our content, but when it comes to emerging teaching pedagogies, we might not be there, and we need some help. And when it comes to hybrid content today is dynamic, it's interactive, it's not really as traditional as before. And I augmented that by one of the critical success factors that I have had so far, and that is teaching and learning communities of practice. Well, if you ask most of the directors of teaching and learning centers about the challenge is how to buy in faculty, how to convince faculty to come out of their classrooms, to come out of the labs and participate in teaching and learning professional development activities. And I got them into partners to manage the center with the team in there by creating communities of practices. I'm not going to go into details here except the communities of practices. So I have what I call the faculty fellows. And when I started with 25 faculty fellows who acted as the think tank of the center, and I created subtle and soil communities of practices to conduct research about how we teach. And actually, I established what I call the PhD Teaching Academy to certify PhD students to be higher education instructors. Am I done with the time? Okay, thank you. We'll digitize the textbooks, and we created liaisons for that. The bottom line is, get your faculty as partners in managing the activities of teaching and learning through communities of practice. I'm going to jump to the framework that we have developed, and actually I presented it to the AACSP team. You know, the AACSP, they have standard 7 for teaching effectiveness and impact. I think impact is one of the major topics we're discussing for research, teaching, and whatever we do in the academia. So that framework is a mix between a framework that was developed and tested in Colorado State and another model that was tested by Boise State University in North America. But what we did, we centered it at the student-centered approach. And the other dimensions of that framework is student motivation, classroom climate, instructional strategies, feedback assessment, and the feedback framework with the alignment between curriculum and the learning objectives in there. And we use this as a framework of evaluating our faculty performance. So on annual plans, each faculty should actually start by identifying which domain he or she is going to work on through that year. And if you look at the domains, they are impacting each other's. And once he or she identify a domain, take that domain, align it with his own professional development objectives, and then investigate, plan, after that engage and integrate, and then reflect and assess. And there's no guarantee of success. Well, this might not succeed at the end of the day, but we look at the different reasons of failure, we learn from that, and we go ahead to the next year and so forth. Well, as a matter of fact, we developed a rubric for every single domain there to be used by our faculty. It's being piloted at UAU, and inshallah it's going to be implemented in the University of Calgary starting this spring. Thank you very much for listening.